Right in the beginning, let me make one point very clear. The great Bhagavan Buddha taught nothing but Vedanta. But what later on came out as the Buddhistic philosophy was completely different from what Bhagavan Buddha had taught. So we need to distinguish between Buddha's teaching and Buddhism. They are two different things. And this is equally applicable to other great spiritual masters also. The same thing is applicable with Bhagavan Shankaracharya also. Bhagavan Shankaracharya's teaching is one thing, but post-Shankarites, that is a totally different thing. The post-Shankarites were totally damaging and destroying everything what the great master Bhagavan Shankaracharya had taught. Similarly, what the great Bhagavan Buddha had taught, Buddhism had completely destroyed that. The same thing you can also apply to Christ and Christianity. What was the teaching of Christ and what came out later as Christianity? They are totally two different things. So, Bhagavan Buddha had taught nothing but Vedanta. But what was the nature of Buddhistic philosophy? That was something which ruined India completely. Now, what was this Buddhistic philosophy? Buddhistic philosophy completely rejected the Vedas. Number one, the biggest blunder that it did. It rejected the Vedas. It denied the existence of a personal God. It denied the existence of Atman. It completely rejected the ritualistic and devotional practices mentioned in the Vedas. Now, what was the outcome of this kind of a rejection? It was very crucial to understand the degenerative state which India is found to be existing at that time. Because Buddhism denied the personal God, what happened was the age-old stream of Vaidika Bhakti. A Bhakti is always dependent on a personal God. The human beings who were used to worship a personal God, through their Bhakti, through their worship, through image worship, by holding on to a Vigraha, by engaging themselves in puja, all these wonderful devotional practices, that stream of that Vaidika Bhakti slowly dried up. Number two, by denying the Atman, when Buddhism completely denied the absence of the soul, absence of Atman, there is no Atman. The consequence of this kind of a philosophy was the age-old stream of Vaidika Jnana Marga, in which the essential teaching is that you are the Atman, the immortal Atman. That stream of Vaidika Jnana Marga slowly began to dry up. Thirdly, Buddhism completely rejected the Vaidika Karma Kanda, the rituals. When the rituals were completely rejected, rituals are very important for the common man. The common man doesn't understand high philosophy. The common man needs something solid to hold on to. He needs rituals. He needs to do puja with so many items and paraphernalia of ritualistic practices. He needs that. When that also was denied, because the Vedic Karma Kanda was also denied, there was nothing for the common man to hold on to. So in this vacuum, what happened was all kinds of dirty practices, degenerative practices entered into the lives of the human beings, everyday lives of the human beings. And what did Buddhism teach? Buddhism taught shunyam. Everything is shunyam. This negative, pessimistic, life-denying ideology of Buddhism was one of the main causes of the destruction of our great culture and civilization at that time. Everybody was becoming Shunyavadins. It's a totally pessimistic and negative and life-denying ideology. Opposite to that is the ideology of Vedanta, which is completely positive. It says that you are Brahman and everything is Brahman, everything is bliss, everything is divine. Vedanta is that which uplifts everything. The world itself is uplifted to a state of divinity. Everything is divine. Opposed to this positive, life building, life creating, ennobling view of life, Buddhism gave them a view, a world view which was negative, which was denying everything, which was denying all those healthy elements which goes into the making of a healthy society. In this way, we find that this Buddhism, because of its Shunyavad, what happened was people started turning away from a healthy way of life, and people in large numbers, both men and women, they started to become monks. Buddhism opened the doors of monasticism to one and all without any reference to eligibility. This was another big blunder that Buddhism made during that time. Everybody, every man and woman was turning away from life because there was nothing to hold on to. Everything was denied. Bhakti was denied, Jnana was denied, Karma was denied, no devotional practices, nothing to hold on to. So all and everything was declared to be shunya, void. In such a scenario, a large chunk of human population in this Indian subcontinent, they were becoming monks, they were embracing the monastic life. Now what happens when men and women who are not eligible, men and women who doesn't have the eligibility to become monks, when they enter the monastic life, the result of that is nothing but complete degeneration of the monastic system itself. All kinds of degenerative practices, corruption entered into the monastic life, entered into the human life society itself. Licentiousness became the norm. All kinds of hideous practices became the norm of that time. And the most dangerous thing was the left-handed Tantrism which came into existence, which is known as Vamachara. This Vamachara became the one of the very important, I should say, the problems that existed during that time. So in this way, what do we find during that period, just before the advent of Bhagavan Shankara? The entire Indian subcontinent was enveloped in a gloom, in a darkness, politically disintegrated, socially broken into so many small groups, culturally totally shattered. All the different and dangerous ways of life were being adopted by people all over the different parts of Indian subcontinent. Religiously, there were all conflicting kinds of ideologies, and people were fighting with each other, having lost the memory of that unifying factor which unified this entire Indian subcontinent into one. Morally, the entire social fabric had degenerated to such an extent that there was nothing else left but destruction in front of them. Now, this was the legacy which Bhagavan Shankara received, inherited at the time of his advent. Now, from this messy situation, India had to be once again brought back to the healthy state. There was a need for Dharma Sanstapana. Shankara had a tremendous task ahead of him. He had to look into various fronts at the same time. He had to look into the political front. He had to look into the spiritual and religious front. He had to look into the cultural, moral front, and he had to look into the social front. The challenge was on all sides. Overall, the Indian society had degenerated and sunk into the depths of darkness and destruction. Now, how did Bhagavan Shankaracharya accomplished this Dharma Sanstapana? That is a very interesting story. Today, in retrospect, it becomes very easy for us to look back and analyze what Bhagavan Shankara did. Perhaps at that time, even we would not have understood what he is doing. This amazing thing which he was doing. Today it is easy for us to look back and analyze what strategy he actually uh, used to bring the Indian society back to its healthy state. So, what did Bhagwan Shankara do? He had a twofold vision. What was his twofold vision? The first vision was this great person, just like Swami, I was thinking, just like Swami Vivekananda sitting on the Kanyakumari rock and looking at the entire Indian subcontinent spread before him and meditating on Bharat. Similarly, Bhagavan Shankaracharya had the same kind of a vision. His vision was pan-India vision. He was thinking of unifying this entire Indian subcontinent by bringing them back to the Vedic fold. This was his first vision. To bring back the entire human population back to the Vedic fold and unify them into one unit. The second vision of Bhagavan Shankaracharya was to strengthen the age-old stream of Vaidika Sanatana Dharma, which has been flowing from ageless past. That stream of Vaidika Sanatana Dharma had to be strengthened and made vigorous for the sake of posterity, so that this Vaidika Sanatana Dharma keeps on nourishing the humanity of the future also. So this was the two kind of vision which he had. One is to unify the entire Indian subcontinent by bringing them back to the Vedic fold. Secondly, by breathing fresh life into the Vedika Sanatana Dharma and make this stream flow with vigor and strength for the sake of the posterity. How did he do this? Again, Bhagavan Shankara worked at two levels. A wonderful strategy. First, he worked at the high ideological level, and secondly, he also worked at the level of the common masses. We shall take these two steps separately. Now, what did he do at the high ideological plane? If you just look, it is something wonderful. Bhagavan Shankara unfurled the banner of Advaita Vedanta. He wrote his immortal commentaries. When I say immortal commentaries, I am not using the word immortal in a figurative sense. It is literally immortal. As long as this creation will last, his commentaries will stand there, unshakable, invincible. The great Vedanta philosophy which he created stands there like a Mount Everest. Let me make one point very clear. Advaita is not anybody's creation. It is not the creation of Shankaracharya. It is not the creation of anybody. But the Advaita philosophy, the philosophy based on the Advaita experience, that philosophical structure was erected by Bhagavan Shankara for once and for all times. And that structure was based on solid rock foundation of rationality. And that structure, which was erected 1200 years ago, stands even today. That is why Swami Vivekananda, referring to this, Swami Vivekananda says that the writings of this person, Shankaracharya, is the marvels of the modern world. The modern world is simply stunned by seeing what this person has left behind as the great Advaita Vedanta philosophy. Even today, all over the world, people are hungry to read his commentaries. So he wrote these immortal commentaries on the Prasthanatraya, on the Upanishads, on the Brahma Sutras, and on Bhagavad Gita. And in and through these commentaries, he erected this magnificent structure of the Advaita Vedanta philosophy, which is shedding its light even today after 1200 years, and it will keep on shedding the light for till the end of this creation. Secondly, he gathered a group of monks around him, sannyasins, all sannyasins, capable and eligible sannyasins. And he classified this group of sannyasins into 10 groups. And he founded the Dashanami Sampradaya. Shankaracharya was a great organizer. In fact, a very rare organizer which we come across in the history of India. He organized his group of sannyasis into 10 groups. That is how this Dashanami Sampradaya came into existence. Number 3, what did he do with these 10 groups? To each of these groups, he assigned the task of preserving certain Vedas and certain Upanishads. Again, I'm telling you, see, this is how Bhagwan Shankaracharya was ensuring the preservation of the great Vedic culture. So to each of these groups, he assigned the task of preserving certain Vedas and the Upanishads. Number 4, what did he do? In order to facilitate the propagation of Advaita Vedanta and to facilitate the stay of these sannyasins, he founded 4 mathas. And what is most interesting is the choice of the place where he founded these 4 mathas. He didn't choose his native place to found these mathas. He chose, in his vision, it was a pan-India vision. He wanted these 4 mathas to stand like 4 forts from where this Vedika Sanatana Dharma would be preserved and the message of Vedanta would be spread for the sake of the posterity. One matha was established in South, in the Sringeri, which is existing even today, existing vigorously. Another he founded in the Himalayas, 3rd one in the western coast of Dwaraka, and the 4th one in the eastern coast of Puri. Just look at this man's vision, a pan-India vision, one unit. He was seeing Bharatvarsha as one unit, one cultural unit, and his plan to bring this entire Bharatiya Bhukhand back to the Vedic fold. For that reason, he founded these 4 mathas in the 4 corners of this Indian subcontinent. And then he once again breathed fresh life into the Varnashrama Dharma. In this way, Bhagwan Shankara, he worked at the high ideological plane by founding the great Advaita system of thought, the Advaita philosophy, and the paraphernalia, or that infrastructure in and through which this Advaita Vedanta would be preserved for the benefit of the posterity. And this could be done only by the sannyasins. He knew this very well. Preservation of the Vedas and the high Advaitic wisdom, this cannot be done by the common man. Common man has got a different role. He didn't underestimate that. Yes, religion cannot be preserved only by the sannyasins, but the difficult part of it, the extremely subtle part of it, that is what the sannyasins preserve. The central part of it, the Vedas, the Vedanta, the preservation of that great wisdom, that was completely assigned to the sannyasins of his order. And 1200 years today, if we are finding the Upanishads and Vedas existing, we have to be thankful to this group of sannyasins, this great Dashanami Sampradaya, which has existed for the last 1200 years, protecting this great wisdom in the midst of all oppositions. We know the oppositions what India has faced in the last millennium. Now, if this was the kind of work which he did at the high ideological plane, what did he do at the plane of the common masses? As I said, he never underestimated the importance of the common man. Religion, the true religion, is equally protected and preserved by the common man. If the common man's life is non-spiritual or non-religious, how can religion flourish? After all, it is the common man who is the great protector of this great spirituality and religion. Spirituality and religion has to be in every household. So the common man's way of becoming spiritual and religious is different. The common man may not understand Advaita Vedanta. He may not understand the intricacies of the Vedas. But the common man has got the common man's religion, the religion of bhakti, the religion of image worship, the religion of devotion, the religion of rituals. Before coming to that point, I want to tell that what Bhagavan Shankaracharya did was, the common man is not going to understand what the Upanishad is going to talk about. So he wrote wonderful Prakarana Granthas. The Prakarana Granthas, for example, many of you might have heard about some of the very famous Prakarana Granthas like Viveka Chudamani, the masterpiece, one of the classics, Vedantic classics, Upadesha Sahasri, Atma Bodha, Aparoksha Anubhuti, just to mention a few. There are any numbers of that, composed by Bhagavan Shankaracharya. And all these works were composed so that the common man who is unable to go into the intricacies of Vedas and the Upanishads, he or she will be able to easily understand the central point of Vedanta by studying these Prakarana Granthas. This he did for the sake of the common man's benefit. Secondly, as I said, the common man's religion is the religion of devotion, the religion of bhakti combined with rituals. Bhagavan Shankaracharya ensured by bringing back this common man's religion into the lives of human beings. He brought back the culture of bhakti, the culture of rituals also. It is very interesting. That is why we should understand Bhagavan Shankaracharya's Advaita Vedanta is all comprehensive. No aspect of human life and experience is left out in his scheme of Vedic regeneration. That is something fantastic. People accuse him of being one-sided, that he was only bothered about Advaita Vedanta, he didn't care about the common man. Nothing can be farther from truth. And such accusations is only based upon misinformation or ill information. If you look into Bhagavan Shankaracharya's life, we find how he brought back the common man's religion, the religion of bhakti, the religion of Vigraha Puja, the religion of the rituals. One of the finest example is that he founded the Panchayatana Puja. Just imagine, what is this Panchayatana Puja? Panchayatana Puja, he made it mandatory for every household to worship all the 5 deities. What are these 5 deities? These 5 deities were Vishnu, Shiva, Devi, Surya, Ganapati. To this, later on, Skanda also was added, and it became 6 deities. In this way, by starting this method of Panchayatana Puja, what Bhagavan Shankaracharya accomplished was, he brought about a harmony among these different theistic schools. I told before that there existed different theistic schools, the Vaishnavas, the Shaktas, the Shaivas, the Kapalikas, the Sauryas, the Ganapatyas, and all of them were fighting with each other. In order to harmonize them, in order to synthesize, bring about a synthesis among them, Bhagavan Shankaracharya founded this great Panchayatana Puja, in which it was made mandatory for everyone to worship all the deities and at the same time make one deity prominent. Of course, I am not going into the details of this thing, but in and through this Panchayatana Puja, he brought about a harmony among these different theistic schools who were fighting with each other at that time. Thus, Bhagavan Shankaracharya came to be known as Shanmata Samanvayacharya, the one who brought about the Samanvaya among these Shanmatas, the 6 matas, the 6 theistic schools that existed at that time, and all of them were at loggerheads with each other. And Bhagavan Shankaracharya brought about a harmony and synthesis between them. What a great feat. Then, at the level of the common man, what did he do? We all know. From Rameshwaram till Badrinath, or you can go to the Shankaracharya hill in the Kashmir, or even to some of the portions which is now in Pakistan. The Sarvagya Peetha, it is said it is in Pakistan nowadays. This entire range, from south to the north to the Himalayas, he went on founding temples after temples. Many of the prominent temples that are existing today were founded by Bhagavan Sri Shankaracharya. During the Buddhistic period, the temples that existed at that time, many of the temples were converted into Buddhistic viharas. Bhagwan Shankaracharya once again reconverted these Buddhistic viharas into Vaidika temples, Hindu temples. That was a great achievement. Even today, whether you go to Rameshwaram, whether you go to Puri, whether you go to Badrinath, whether you go to Kashi, whether you go to Somnath, any of these prominent temples, everywhere you find the footsteps of Bhagwan Sri Shankaracharya and what he did it there. Then, one more thing which he did at the common plane of the masses is that composition of the devotional stotras, which is something indescribable. We all know the wonderful stotras which he composed for the common man's spiritual life, for the common man's religious upliftment. The stotras, just to mention a few, the Bhajagovindam Stotra. 1200 years have passed by, and even today that refrain, Bhajagovindam, Bhajagovindam, even now you go to any of the temples in India, you will find this echoing. Just imagine Shankaracharya is alive through his compositions. It makes one inspired to go on the spiritual life. This Bhajagovindam is just one. You take Nirvana Shatakam, Shivoham, Shivoham. You take his Bhavani Ashtakam. You take his Narmada Ashtakam. You take his Ganga Stotram. The stotras for Ganga, for Narmada, for Shiva, for Vishnu. Each one of them marvelous, soul-enthralling compositions. All those who know Sanskrit, they can understand the melody, the poetry, the philosophy, and the lofty vision and the deep emotions of bhakti, all packed into his compositions. Simply thrilling. This was what Bhagwan Shankaracharya did for the common man's religious and spiritual practices, apart from the high ideology of Advaita Vedanta. Then, he started the worship of the Divine Mother. Interesting, it is so interesting that so many people accuse of Bhagwan Shankaracharya never accepted Shakti. What a ridiculous accusation it is. He was one of the greatest worshippers of the Divine Mother. At all the mathas that he established, he started the worship of the Divine Mother, Shakti. He was the one who started the worship of Divine Mother in the Yantra, Shri Chakra. I am not going into the details of it. In this way, we find Bhagwan Shankara started the common man's religion of bhakti in and through, mixed with rituals, with all the paraphernalias, so that the common man who doesn't understand Advaita Vedanta can move ahead in life. All those life ennobling elements which Buddhism had destroyed, Shankaracharya once again brought it back into the common man's life, and this is how, by combining the high Advaita Vedanta with the common man's religious practices, he slowly succeeded in bringing back the entire Indian subcontinent back to the Vedic fold. It's an unbelievable feat. Within a few centuries of his lifetime, we find other great acharyas of the bhakti movements, all of them giants, Ramanujacharya, Madhvacharya, and many of them. And not only these acharyas, we have great spiritual luminaries like Guru Nanak, Ramananda, Tulsidas, Kabir Das, Ravidas, all these great saints, down to Sri Ramakrishna and Swami Vivekananda and Ramana Maharshi. You can go. The impact of Shankaracharya's ideology can be seen in all of them equally. That is how in last 1,000 years we find the power which was unleashed by this great incarnation. That power has sustained Indian society, this Vaidika society. It has sustained the Vaidika Sanatana Dharma, and it has made this Vaidika Sanatana Dharma stream of thought flow uninterrupted. Shankaracharya was a great uphold of the Varnashrama Dharma. He also ensured that this Varnashrama Dharma is maintained. Just like in a sick body, in a sick physical body, sometimes we need blood transfusion. If the blood is poisoned, what do? Doctors, they do blood transfusion. They take pure blood from outside and then inject that pure blood into the patient's arteries and veins, and that is how the patient comes back to the life. Similarly, India's body was sick in the during the Buddhistic times. And this sick body needs a great transfusion. Shankaracharya, Bhagwan Shankaracharya, injected the pure blood of Vedic Sanatana Dharma thought system into the blood and arteries, into the arteries and veins of India's body. And in and through this fresh infusion of pure blood of Sanatana Dharma ideas into the arteries and veins of the Indian body, India was once again made alive. This Indian society, the Hindu society, the Vedic Sanatana Dharma society once again was made alive, and it was strengthened. It became active once again. That is how we find in the last 1,000 years, with this strengthened body, India could withstand all the invasions. If India had not been strengthened in this way by Bhagwan Shankaracharya, long back, Indian society would have been fallen, and it had become fully victimized by the barbarous Islamic invaders. Even after centuries of rule by the Islamic invaders, just imagine, even today, the Hindu society is majority in this country. How is it possible? How did this Hindu Samaj withstand this barbarous invasion? It is because Shankaracharya's movement, the revivalistic movement, had strengthened the Indian body-mind complex. And that is what Shankaracharya achieved, and because of which the Hindu Sanatana Dharma is even now existing. It is not only existing, interestingly, the Advaita Vedanta which Bhagwan Shankaracharya had founded, today that Advaita Vedanta is crossing the boundaries of India and it is capturing the imagination of people everywhere. Just imagine. I belong to this Advaita ashram. I know every year hundreds and hundreds of copies of Brahma Sutra Bhashyas, hundreds and hundreds of copies of Upanishad Bhashyas, hundreds and hundreds of copies of Gita Bhashyas are sent to all the parts of the world from this Advaita ashram. People are hungry to read the Advaita Vedanta philosophy of Bhagwan Shankaracharya, and innumerable number of people are becoming converted to Vedanta. They may be Christians, they may be Muslims, they may be anything else, but ideologically they are getting converted into Advaita Vedanta. Just imagine the contribution of this great person, what he did and what is happening even now owing to his great deeds. So, friends, this is how Bhagwan Shankaracharya accomplished this great Dharma Sanstapana. One more thing I want to say here in this context before I end. I will take 5 more minutes if you have time. That is, what is the connection between Bhagwan Sri Shankaracharya and Bhagwan Sri Ramakrishna? Because most of us here are the devotees who belong to the Ramakrishna Bhavadhara. We should understand what is the connection between Bhagwan Ramakrishna and Bhagwan Sri Shankaracharya. This is very important. Unfortunately, since last several decades, there have been many people who have been initiating a thought current which spreads the idea that Bhagwan Sri Ramakrishna's Advaita Vedanta is different from Bhagwan Shankaracharya's Advaita Vedanta. That Swami Vivekananda's Advaita Vedanta is different from Bhagwan Shankaracharya's Advaita. This kind of a thought current has been going on for last several decades. And it is even now, you will find any number of speakers speaking in that way. But I want to bring to your notice something. This is far from truth. And it is very sad that this kind of a narrative is being spread everywhere. The truth is that let me just state certain quotations from great monks of this organization. First, let me quote one of the great luminary, one of the great monks of our Ramakrishna order, the 11th president of the Ramakrishna order, most revered Swami Gambhiranandaji Maharaj, one who translated all the Upanishads into English, Shankar Bhashya into English, one who translated the Brahma Sutra Bhashya of Shankaracharya into English, one who translated the Bhagavad Gita Bhashya of Shankaracharya into English. This great spiritual luminary, in his conclusion, he says that it is Sri Shankaracharya's philosophy which was preached by Swami Vivekananda and which was experienced by Sri Ramakrishna. I don't want to go into the details of this, that will be a totally different subject, but I'm giving certain conclusions for all of you to think. Then there was another great Swami, the revered Swami Premeshanandaji Maharaj. He also speaks in the similar vein. Then we have heard the same thing coming out from the 12th president of the Ramakrishna order, most revered Swami Bhakteshanandaji Maharaj. So all these great spiritual luminaries, they held the view that it is Sri Shankaracharya's philosophy which was preached by Swami Vivekananda and realized by Sri Ramakrishna. Let me go back to one more very powerful and authentic person whose statement cannot be overlooked. Let us go back, and that person is Sister Nivedita. Now, why Sister Nivedita is so important? Because Sister Nivedita, whatever she had learned in her life about Indian spirituality, she had learned it from her Guru, Swami Vivekananda, none other than Swami Vivekananda. Sister Nivedita was just a spokesperson of Swami Vivekananda. Everything that she spoke, she wrote, it was all what she had learned from the greatest spiritual teacher of the modern time, Swami Vivekananda. And this great Sister Nivedita, while describing Sri Ramakrishna, makes a beautiful observation, which you will find in the Web of Indian Life. Sister Nivedita says, while describing Sri Ramakrishna, she says that in the great life of Sri Ramakrishna, Hinduism finds Shankaracharya's philosophy clothed upon with flesh. I repeat once again. In this great life of Ramakrishna Paramahamsa, Hinduism finds Sri Shankaracharya's philosophy clothed upon in flesh. What does it mean? Nivedita says, if you take Shankaracharya's philosophy and you cloth it with flesh, what you get is Sri Ramakrishna. Ramakrishna is the flesh and blood embodiment and manifestation of Bhagavan Shankaracharya's philosophy. So that is the connection between Bhagavan Sri Ramakrishna and Bhagavan Sri Shankaracharya. With this, I conclude this meeting. Dear friends, once again, let me pray for the well-being of all the people all over the world who are going through a very difficult time. Let us pray for all those people who have lost their near and dear ones. And in these testing times, what can really give us strength and endurance to withstand the losses and also to face the situation is a strong conviction in the presence of God in our heart. We should never forget that Bhagavan is there. Bhagavan is there in our hearts. We should not forget. If Bhagavan is there in life, it is Bhagavan himself comes in the form of death also. Gita says, Mrityu sarvaharashchaham. The 10th chapter. Bhagavad Gita says, Bhagavan says, I myself come in the form of Mrityu sarvaharashchaham. So we don't want to see Bhagavan in death. We only want to see Bhagavan in life. We should remember Bhagavan is present both in life as well as death. When we understand this, we can overcome our fear or insecurity about what is happening around us. Let us pray for the well being of everyone all over the world, and let us pray that may everyone stay healthy, safe, and cheerful. Thank you so much.